First day of March break, Chris.
Yeah, 2.0.
Why are you calling it 2.0?
Because it's like an iteration that we have never seen before. No?
Well, you're talking about more than just the March break at
Uh,
this point. I'm just talking about the first day you wake up from March break or you wake up in March break and you're like, whoa, I have a
yeah,
week
that part.
off.
Yeah, that part I appreciate.
Okay, fair enough. I
I get it.
mean, we'll go to
Waking,
2.0 in a second, but
but no, even like, yeah, you're right. Waking up this morning and kind of realizing that it was not business as usual for a Saturday. First thing I think is like, do I start to do household cleanup or do I just leave the household cleanup for sometime in the next 3 weeks?
for the 2.0, the
For the
week two or week three, yeah.
yeah, I actually don't. I haven't landed yet on whether or not any chores are going to get done anytime soon.
It's funny that you say that. I'm in the same boat. I'm in the same boat. Yet this morning when I woke up, went downstairs to grab something, and I looked around, looked like a bomb exploded, and I was like, ah, it'll get cleaned up. Just not right now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Come home from work yesterday and sit down in the family room beside my son. And my son's like, hey, what are we having for dinner tonight? It's Friday. What are we having for dinner tonight? And I'm literally like, give me a minute. Close my eyes. My wife appears. My wife's not well. She's had the flu for like 2 weeks. Don't worry, it's not corona. She was sick before corona. It's just not going away, whatever she respiratory infection and flu-like symptoms. Anyway, she's like, the first thing she says is, "Are you sick?" No, no, I'm exhausted. I'm not sick. I'm tired. Um, and I just need to sit here for a few minutes and close my eyes.
Yep.
And it was the Fridays combined with knowing you don't have to go back to work for a little bit of time. Um, it hit me like a ton of bricks. And even when I went out to get them supper, we had subs last night for dinner, and even like sitting at the sub place, I've paid for my food. I'm entitled to be in this building. Can
Mm-hmm.
I just go to that corner and sleep and you wake me up when my food is ready? That's what I wanted to say. But I didn't. I sat there. And I wanna hit you with an interesting story that happened to me at the sub place, but I don't wanna get in the way of our flow. So it's the
Do it.
first day. It's
Do it.
okay.
Yeah.
It's the first day of March break, and I'm kind of feeling weird. I'm feeling good because I had a good sleep last night, and I'm talking to you this morning, so that's cool. But I'm feeling weird, man, about what's to come because my son's hockey season ended on Thursday. I get him to practice, 5 p.m. practice. And the whole thing was surreal. We got there 4:30 and he and all his buddies were on the ice at 4:40 because there was nobody on the ice before us and our coaches were ready, so they went out on the ice. So we're like, the parents were looking around like, why are they on the ice? Oh, because the ice is available. So it's like 4:45 now, okay? And I'm joking with the parents about something, and one of the parents who's a teacher says, hey, did you hear the news? And I'm like, what are you talking about? She goes, 2 weeks after March break, we will not be in school. Schools are closed. And I'm like, don't mess with me. What are you doing? And she pulls out her phone and she points it at me, and I see the report on the news that this has just been announced. And I'm like, oh dear. Okay. Earlier that day, the NHL had shut down, and then even earlier, the NBA had shut down. And now we're all standing there looking at each other. We're like, oh my God, like this is, it's, it's become like amped up more real. Like just it hit another notch, like schools are closed. And then I'm like, well, this is next. Like minor sports are next because NHL, OHL, like everything's just, they're shutting it down. So now it's like 5 p.m., maybe a little earlier than 5 p.m. And the head coach walks right up to the group of us and says, I don't have official word, but we're getting shut down. This is it. Like, this is it. Hockey's over. And he walks away, kind of like to go get dressed and get on the ice. And we're all looking at each other and we're like, holy cow, this could be it. And then that night, Hockey Canada put out a statement, and then Waterloo Minor Hockey, the season's over. Like, not on pause, over. So, like, I'm supposed to be at hockey today. I was supposed to be at hockey last night. Hockey's over. And then baseball, we were supposed to have a practice today. Over. Until, like, we got notice. Well, it's not over. It's put on pause because the season hasn't even started yet. But all that coming together has kind of hit me this morning. Like, I literally have nowhere to go. Like, I can't even go to work. So anyway, that's how I'm starting my March break, and it's weird. But when we all get back to work and things are better in our world, and like things are relatively under control, awesome. Okay, so I go to the sub place yesterday. I go in, I order my food, I sit down. About, I'd say 5 minutes before I get my sub, this man walks into the restaurant, and he sits down 2 tables away from me, and he's an elderly gentleman, and he looks at me and says, "How are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm good, man. How are you?" He goes, I'm good." And he just keeps talking to me. Like, it's getting cold out there again. I'm like, yeah, this weather's like, and so he's saying something to me and I'm responding, and I'm not just giving him a one-off. I'm trying to just talk like complete sentences, and actually this man's engaging me. I don't know why, so I'm engaging back. And then he starts talking about the grace of God. So now he's getting like all religious, which is fine. Like, I don't mind, but it's kind of awkward or weird for someone you don't know to just walk in and start talking to you about God. And usually what happens in these situations is somebody, in my experience, somebody's trying to sell me on something, or they're pushing it, and I feel like it's coming out in the wrong place, the wrong time. But that's just me. So then they call my name, I go grab my food, and as I'm walking out the door, I'm like, "Hey, buddy, take care. Stay warm." I don't know if he's homeless. He looked relatively, like, he did not look stereotypically homeless, if you will, but he had like a couple of plastic bags that didn't look like he just went shopping at Walmart, and he had them down on the table, and he had come in, taken his stuff off and sat at a table. He didn't go up to order his food. Like, it didn't sit well with me. It didn't sit like the man wants to get a sub, but he's going to sit here for 20 minutes first, then go order his sub. It was just different. And then as I'm opening the door to leave, he says to me, "I've met Jesus." And now the door's open and the cold air is coming in, so I close the door and I'm like, right on. That's awesome. And I wasn't being a jerk. I was like, "Hey, you found Jesus? That's awesome." And I'm looking at him, and he goes, "It was 50 years ago that I met up with Jesus." And I said to him, knowing that I was leaving, "I bet you that's one hell of a good story." And then he keeps talking, and I'm like, "Brother, I gotta go. Like, I got a family to feed. I'm exhausted. I'm not having this conversation with you." So I wished him well, and he kept talking as I opened the door and walked out, and I had said, "I'm leaving, goodbye. I would love to hear that story, but it's not going to happen today." And then as I was walking to my car, because I kind of parked far away, I didn't park really close this time. I'm walking to my car and I'm thinking, should I have engaged him more in conversation? Should I have just sat down and listened to his story? Now, I have to tell you, I'm a little bit biased, right? Because I am a Catholic teacher, but I'm also a believer of the faith, and I believe in Jesus. And I seriously would love to hear his story about having met Jesus. I don't know if it's true. I don't know if it's not true. I don't know what it is, but I would have loved to actually talk with him and get his story. Because I think if I had turned around and gone back in, it was going to be Rolland 4.0, no holds barred. I would have put my food down and said, "Are you homeless, dude? What's your story? Why'd you choose to talk to me today? Do you talk to everybody like this? Or did you see something about me and you just thought you'd say hello? And why, when I was trying to leave, did you push me with Jesus? Why did you wait until I was stepping out the door?" So as I tell you this it's sitting right here, man. Like, it's very fresh. I can still see it. As I was going to my car, I was wondering, should I turn around and go back in? And I decided no. I decided my kids are at home. They're hungry. Like, they're genuinely hungry. And I was just going to go home, feed my kids, and sit down and chill for a bit. But now I think to myself, if that were to happen again, would I message my wife and say, "Hey, I'm going to be 15 minutes late. I'm talking to somebody. I'll message you in 15 minutes and let you know I'm okay"? Because when I came home, as I was getting the food out of the containers, I said to my wife, I said, "Hey, I had this weird interaction just 10 minutes ago." And she's like, "What happened?" I said, "This dude walked in and started talking to me. And then when I was leaving, he's telling me he met Jesus 50 years ago." And Sarah kind of had a smile on her face. I said, "I really wanted to know his story. I wanted to hear it. And then I wanted to hit him with some honesty on my part. Are you full of baloney, or what's the situation here? What are you talking to me about this for? Why me? What's going on? What's your story? Are you homeless? Are you not homeless? And like, is there something like, what's going on here?" Because there were other people in the restaurant. There were other people sitting in close proximity to me. People don't usually stop and talk to me. So there's a lot going through there. But the human part of me wanted to hear the man's story. But the human part of me also was like, if you're going to take my time, then I'm going to ask you some difficult questions. And I'm going to ask you questions without a filter in my mouth. I don't care how it's going to sound to you. If you don't care about talking to me about what you want to talk about, then I'm going to reciprocate. You're going to have some of that. And it wasn't going to be a negative, adversarial type of thing. It was going to be, you know what? You want to hit me with, "You met Jesus 50 years ago"? I'm going to hit you with, "Tell me your story. What's your story? Do you have a family? Are you mentally ill?" Like, none of this coming from a place of like shame or wanting to attack. Real curiosity. If you're going to hit me with that, then I'm going to hit you with some stuff too. And we're going to have and I'm going to be in 100% for 15 minutes. That's what I'm going to give you. And for goodness sake, if you are homeless, man, pick a sub off the wall. Let me buy you one at the very least. I have no problem doing that. Let me buy you dinner. If you're looking for money, let me buy you dinner. I can do that. I'm fortunate enough to be able to do that for you. But it didn't happen. And now I'm talking to you about it. Anyway, I just wanted to hit you with that. I don't know. It's just sitting there. It's sitting there, and then I think to myself, should I be prepared for these things? And you know me. We've talked about me being prepared for particular things that never really happen, but I'm prepared anyway. It's like, if we can attach this story to our lives as educators, what's the backup plan for when you wake up and your kid's barfing and your partner's got to be at work that day? And you need to be at work, but you're the one that's not going to go to work that day. What do? Are you prepared? I'm prepared. I'm 100% prepared, to the point where people laugh at me at work. They're like, "That's never going to happen." I'm like, "Brother, it's happened to me. In my 18 years, it's happened at least half a dozen times. And now every day I'm prepared for it, even though it rarely happens." So do I now need to go out into the world and be prepared to sit down and chat with people that I don't know, when they hit me with their truth or whatever they want from me? That's what they're going to hit me with. Am I prepared? Do I need to be prepared?
Yes. Yes. Flat out, yes. It's so many cool layers to this. there's something in my DNA, as near as I can figure, that random people come up and ask me questions or sort of connect with me in random spaces. And I've learned that something in the tell me more toolkit really gets some interesting conversations happening. Like, just when I first really noticed this, because it was so decontextualized, was when Karen and I traveled in 1999, we traveled to Europe, and we got train passes and just backpacks and stayed in hostels. I don't even think I've even mentioned this to you. So when we were early in our relationship, we were moving from Guelph, where we had done university and kind of had lived our lives, and we were moving to Toronto. So we were in transition. We were going to the big city. And we were fortunate in that in our transition time, we got a great apartment in the beaches, like phenomenal place, in Toronto. And then we were allowed to move our stuff in to the new place. And then we went traveling. So we kind of moved in late August, and then we were traveling until late October, early November. And while we were in Europe, and then we came back to Toronto and kind of the next stage of life started. But while we were in Europe, I can't tell you how many times I was asked to help lift someone's luggage, grocery cart, box up a few sets of stairs, because we were taking subways too. It kept on happening, to the point where Karen's like, what is going on? Now, you could kind of throw in the stranger danger, and you're sort of thinking, while you're lifting that shopping cart, like the two-wheeled metal grocery cart that you sometimes see people kind of it folds up, right? These things were everywhere in Europe. Every sort of the stereotype kind of was working. Every little old lady had some version of that with all their stuff in it for the day. And I can't tell you how many of them I huffed up staircases or got it set just right so it would go up the escalator properly. And like at this point, Karen's like laughing. She's like, someone's going to ask you the next time we go down into that subway station or the train station. I'm like, yeah, it's funny. It's kind of happening. And I'll extend this. At the time, like, I had a massive backpack on my back. So I'm carrying this massive bag. I'm starting to feel like this metaphor is going to work very well as I'm starting to replay this out. So I'm already burdened, visibly burdened. So as is Karen, she had her backpack on. So I have people approaching me to help me carry another, and then the backpacks I was carrying, because mine was a larger leader one than Karen. So I kind of had gear in mind that was sort of like our common gear. Then I also had my clothing in there on top of that. So I had the bigger pack. And people ask me to lift this stuff up. I was wondering, like, what is it about? What is it that they see in me as a random? Because I'm a random in this relationship as well. Like, there's hundreds of locals walking past this person going up the stairs or moving through this space. And they approach me and ask me to help them lift it up. So again, you can do the stranger danger. I'm being tagged. They're going to steal something from me. Maybe they're looking like, this dude looks strong. Look at the size of the backpack. Maybe he's strong enough to help me. Maybe they're saying, I can trust this guy because he's traveling with a companion. Oh, look, he's a Canadian. He's got his Canadian little flag on his thing. I had a bunch of those, right? He's telling jokes and laughing, because that's what we were constantly doing, just laughing and enjoying ourselves. So there seems to be something pleasant there. But again, from the inside, it felt like randoms asking me. I didn't realize my impression and how I was sort of affecting the space around me. So it was at that point that I kind of clued into that how you project out into these spaces is important, because it does draw sometimes safe, sometimes not safe, sometimes strange, sometimes very normal people to connect with you. And the why behind this individual connecting with you in this particular time, you're right, there's a whole bunch of stories that you missed out on. to sort of like to figure out what it was about you in that moment and the other people moving through that space, and why me, why them, and then you sort of like playing the game tape afterwards. I will fall on, yes, there was a really great opportunity there of connection, and I'll double down on it. Connection in a time and space right now where we're kind of being told to not make connections or to find alternative ways to make connections instead of sort of face to face or IRL. And again, moving forward, noticing this in yourself, noticing this in the spaces around you, all you can do is choose to do something differently next time. But I would agree, there was probably like one of the things that when I've taken the Safe Talk training. So the Safe Talk training is for suicide prevention. And one of the things that was recommended within this conversation is that, you know, in supporting someone that might be exhibiting signs of trauma or behaviors that are alignment with trauma, is one of the biggest challenges not to shut down their experience by countering what they're saying to you or trying to sort of fix immediately what they're saying to you. A big part of it is to keep them talking and to position yourself in such a way that you feel comfortable and safe saying, tell me more. That when you're on one-to-one with your kids in the school, I think is it can be a frightening and a stressful and anxiety inducing position. One, because maybe it's just not, you don't feel like you have the skills to support. One, maybe you don't know the kid. You know, another one might be that, you know, is it going to do more harm in this moment? Another part might be trust. Another part might just be, we don't have time. I have to get to my next class. But I think that analogy within the school is very much what can sometimes happen, in a coffee shop. And someone rolls in that sits down beside you, that right away the judgment frames go click, 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 and you try to compartmentalize and you try to put this person into a box, so that not that you necessarily understand the person, but that you sort of give yourself permission to act a certain way. And getting yourself outside somebody else's box can sometimes be really difficult because you start to build that story. I would love if you ran into this dude again. Like, I would love for you to have a second opportunity at this. Don't know how you would roll, but I would love for you to have that, because I would agree, like, someone rolls into me and tells me they've met Jesus, or somebody else that or they have an experience that I kind of put in this space, like, that's extraordinary. Like, whether I believe you or I don't believe you, if you believe it, that's extraordinary. I've tried. I love that you're raising this right now, because it is something that I'm really trying to, it is something that I'm trying to sort of build in my own lens as I move through spaces right now. The noticing of some of these things that are extraordinary and pushing back. Like you said, do the kids really need their sub right now? Like, you sort of like, you roll through that checklist of what you have to get to, and you give equal measure to, but is this extraordinary thing worth it? Like, can I actually lay that against this right now and just spend some time in this moment, kind of soak it up? That's it. I love this story. I love it. I think it crackles off on so many spaces, both personal, professional, and even right now political, about building relationships and paying attention, spending time in these moments.
There you have it.
I love it.
What's your plan for 3 weeks away from work?
I don't know. I didn't leave work yesterday telling myself that certain things had to be done. I gave myself permission to kind of go. I gave myself permission to notice that this is a very strange time. And I don't know if I can fairly drop a plan into it. Because what is a plan? It's contingent on so many external factors. Mm-hmm. Everything else is just personal development or reflection or reading a book. Like if I were to say there was something I really wanted to do, there's a high likelihood, I guess it just becomes imaginative, there's high likelihood that someone exterior to me is going to say that's closed, you can't do that. Right? There's chatter in our house about cleaning spaces, like just getting ready, sort of like the spring cleaning. I definitely have to look at my creative space here. I mean, all the stuff that you see kind of tagged up around me and the constant layering, at some point, it no longer inspires creativity for me. All it does is kind of insulate me from my next thing. So I probably should be doing some filing and packing some stuff up that's no longer activating my creative chops anymore. I really appreciate Ronnie. I've started to follow this dude Ronnie Burkett on Insta, and Ronnie Burkett is a I actually don't even know what the specific term. I'm gonna call him a puppeteer, a professional, a very well known puppeteer, and some of the I'm mashing the language. Some of the marionettes, the actual puppets that he makes, are phenomenal. They're just really great to look at, and he's such a charismatic character. He posted up a a multi-layered video on Insta, acknowledging the fact that, I mean, he's an entrepreneur, he's a performer, he's an artist. So his livelihood is dependent on doing things, doing the creative, making, and then sharing it in public spaces. And his life now is kind of collapsed in a little bit, like, because performance places are being put on hold. And he put out a bit of a video op-ed basically saying, now would be the time to get to work. Practice the things that you haven't been able to get to. Refine the items that are just close to being great, but they're not. Explore the new. Really explore the new in your own spaces. You will have less distraction and potentially less distraction and more deep work time. And he said flat out, he said, leave the anxiety inducing performative fear posts to other people. Like, just don't participate. And I liked that. I liked that someone said that. I liked that someone who, he's speaking from experience. So he's saying, his life has been changed by this in probably both financial and emotional and psychological ways. But he's saying, get to work. Get to work. So for me, I mean, I'm fortunate in that my creative and the stuff that actually feeds my curiosity is reading and writing. So that's a very portable type of activity. I can do that. I can do that whether I'm out walking in the morning, or I can do it if I'm sort of sitting on a bench somewhere with a coffee, or I can do it in my house. So it's probably going to be, personally, it's going to be that kind of stuff. I'm gonna look at some course planning. I'm trying to sort of keep stuff fresh coming into the end of the semester with my community kids and us cooking. So I'll do some work on that too. How about you?
I'd like to learn. I don't know if I said this on the podcast, but I bought a camera, a DSLR, a short while ago, and I've been using it, and I'd like to learn a little bit more about how to use it right, or, just how to leverage that device to make better videos and take better photographs. So I think I'm going to spend some time doing that. Now that the hockey season's over, I think I'm gonna do some creative stuff there. I'm gonna comb through some of the stuff that's been created throughout the season and see if I can put something together to bring some closure to like the thing being over. Because what's interesting about it is, and I was starting to feel really tired Like my friend at work, his kid plays rep hockey too, and we were talking about this time of the year, and it's like play downs are happening and championship weekends are coming, and it's like people are just tired, right? Like last week we had another early morning practice. We had one the week before. It was supposed to be the last one, and the coach was able to find more time. And I remember being at the rink, and we were all looking at each other like we're tired. Like we've been doing this since September. So um, it's coming to an end soon, and we all thought it would come to a natural end. But because it didn't, I want to try to find a way to. I want to try to find.
Culminate.
Yeah, to
Culminate.
like, yeah. One of my principals used to always say, teaching kids a unit is like getting a plane up in the air, and eventually that plane has to land. You
Yep.
have to end things. You have to culminate. You're right, and then you have to get on the next airplane, take the next flight. And so I need to land the plane in a way that's a little bit more normal than having jumped out of it with the parachute released, because that's really what happened. They're like, get out of the plane. The chute will save you on the way down, and go home and don't leave. That's really what happened. So I'm thinking I've got the time to go comb through the things that were created throughout the season, and then put something together as like it's over. Thanks everybody. We've got these memories. Let's move on to the next thing. So I think like I'm going to be playing around with my creative, the part of me that wants to do some of that's going to live there. Um, I will think about school, but I'm not going to do it this week. I'm seriously going to take this week to do some things for me. And then when the official March break ends, and then we're into the 2 weeks of school closed due to this virus, then I will start wrapping my head more around things with school. Um, I did send home like a little package on things kids can do over the time they're away if they feel like they need to do some school stuff. And I give credit to one of the teaching partners I have on my floor. She put something together, and then she said to me, I'm sending this home. Do you want a copy? And I said, I'd love a copy. So she gave me a copy, and then I tailored her original work to meet the needs and the understanding of my classroom community. And so thanks to her, I mean, like my students, I have sent home information about here's what you do if you want to do something related to school. Because I'm not a big homework, like take the textbook home and do page 13 and 14, 1 to 8. I'm not that teacher. I'm more of a, here are things you can do all the time, every day, that are going to help your child be better prepared for the things I'm going to do with them at school. And so I did send home a little package for them with ideas on what they can do offline and online. And I'm waiting to see what the Ministry of Education puts out around supporting kids at home over the 2 weeks that school's closed, because they said they were going to, but nothing's come out yet. So this week is going to be, I'm going to do some creative stuff this week. And like, it's March break, so I want my kids to feel like I want to do some stuff with the kids and with my wife, but we have to figure out how she's feeling.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like she was relieved. She's like, oh, I can just sleep, because she knows she needs it. But, you know, she goes to bed at 9, wakes up at 6. Like, she needs more than that. So she needs to get better. So I suspect while she's like recovering, the boys and I will find stuff to do. Like I even said, hey, get your running shoes ready, because we could go on a bunch of hikes.
Mm-hmm. Get
Right?
out
Like
and move.
if the weather's cooperative, we can go to some forested areas where we're not going to run into 250 other people, I hope.
Yeah.
And we can just walk and get some air and like just be out, you know? There's going to be time for screen time, trust me. Like I'm going to hit Netflix. I'm going to take some time to absorb some of that nonsense too. So there's going to be screen time for me for sure, but there's also going to be no screen time. And like I said, like there's nothing to do. Like I don't have to be anywhere. So there's going to be, I'm going to be FaceTiming my buddies from Ottawa that I don't normally get to talk to. And I'm sure I'll be talking to some of the teachers that I work with in more of a fun way over the next little while, rather than just focused on school stuff. We can focus on just life, right? I'm actually, now that we're talking about this, I'm looking forward to doing some cooking.
Cool.
Well, under no stress. Like, not okay, I'm home. Sarah's got half the meal done. I'm jumping in. We got to shove it in our mouth, and then one of the kids has to be somewhere.
Yep.
I'm like, I'm going to plan out a couple of decent dinners and like cook them out and just do it like in a relaxed fashion. That should be fun.
Yep. Agreed. I don't have we loaded up on a few freezer foods. Although I was out at even Walmart yesterday, and when we were talking before, I actually wasn't even looking for toilet paper. I was actually looking just to be honest, stopping there after school yesterday. I was shopping for humanity. Gotta be flat out. That's what I was there. I was there to look to see how are people treating each other. Like, is this all, like, are we keeping some balance here? And I'll say the one that I went to, props to the people. There's one in Vaughan on Major Mac. And when I went in there, so it's near Weston and Major Mac, it was chill, man. There was a lot of people in there, a lot of product moving in and out the doors, but it was pretty chill. And I thought, you know what, this isn't what I had heard which was happening around in spaces. I had heard like it was just insanity in some stores, and I've seen the posts about, people double, triple loading stuff from Costco, and because they're gonna flip it on Amazon or whatever. But I liked it. I liked going there. Karen, we were texting, and she said, "You're grocery shopping?" I'm like, "Yeah." And we FaceTimed, and I showed her, and it was like, it was calm. There was stuff on the shelves. There were big pockets on shelves, but you're walking around if you're looking just to eat, you just have to eat. If that's your main objective, you just have to eat, whether it's you or a family of 5 or 10. There was lots of stuff to eat. And there was lots of stuff to eat that wasn't like all premium stuff to eat. Like, you could cobble together some carbs and veg and, maybe, a fake protein, but a protein. So it was cool. And I went there looking for humanity. So I got it. It gave me good vibes. The worst part about it, which was because the lineups were so long and I had to get hustling. So I did use the auto checkout, like you scan yourself. And those machines are just like wacky there. Like, that was the only frustrating part. Sometimes I could bag it. Sometimes I didn't have to bag it. That's it. Not a complaint, just an observation. But that was the most stressful part of it, was just me trying to give my money away for the stuff that I bought. So,
hey, can we talk about the fact that some of these stores are now taking advantage of this situation and selling, like, for example, Shoppers Drug Mart is selling toilet paper for like double or triple the price. Tim Hortons, according to an article I read, they are still requiring their employees to have sick notes that they can't come to work. Like, this is killing me. This is killing me more now than ever before. And I'm not 100% sure I know why. Maybe, I think the school I work at, with its needs and the population, the newcomers who are just here and they're trying to get their bearings straight and stuff, like, it's bothering me. It's bothering me a lot. This is horrible. Like, it's just horrible. And these people buying hand sanitizer and then trying to sell them online for like ungodly amounts of money.
Mm-hmm.
I'm all for people making a living, earning a living. Like, I'm not against that. I'm not against that. Even, I would say, and I guess I don't have the entrepreneurial spirit like some of these people, but in this time, I don't want to call it a crisis, but I'm going to. In this time of crisis, you could buy a case of Lysol wipes and just jack up the price $2 or $3. You could still make money and help people and be relatively reasonable. But to double or triple prices, like that just shows me what's going on there. Uh, it just it kills me. It kills me to see it. I'm very bothered by it. I'm more so than ever. Now I'm wondering why I wasn't ever bothered about this kind of thing before. I think it's because I didn't want to deal with the emotions that would come with it. I did
Right.
not, because I'm bothered. I'm upset. I'm upset. I don't think it's cool. And I think for an individual to do it, that's one thing. But then for like a corporation, say, yeah, jack up those prices. That comes right from the top. That's not a general manager in a Shoppers Drug Mart making that decision. That's coming from head office. It's like, so nobody in head office has ethics? Like, for real? You're running a company and it's totally about the bottom line? Sorry, man. I don't mean to go that way, but I just, I'm just so bothered by it to the point where, like, do I need to shop at Shoppers Drug Mart anymore? Do I have to buy stuff there? What are my alternatives? Like Timmy's, I don't buy coffee. Like, I don't drink coffee. I'll drink tea. I don't often go to Tim Hortons, but I'm thinking now, if I'm really craving donuts or something, then I'm gonna find the 2 or 3 boutique shops in town. And I'm really, or even Zares, they have donuts. I don't have to get, or Sobeys, I don't have to get donuts at Tim Hortons. And I think I may be done with them. I think I may be done.
Yeah, there's I think that there can be some the whole yo-yoing of product allegiance is it's messed up. Like it's messed up to sort of if we're not prepared to hold the actual individuals accountable that we're hitting face to face. So, for example, supporting the staff so the staff can push back on the managers, and then that might compel the managers to sort of speak to their regional, then the regional to corporate. I like that type of fiscal pressure. Like I like that, and I can say it's about, you know, taking my dollars to another store. But then I also think about what's the impact of taking my money away from a place that I know could impact someone's job stability. And I sometimes keep that in mind too. And I hear what you're saying. But I think about that too. So then I think, well, what can I do that also puts that pressure on, which might actually be going into that Tim Hortons, calling the manager aside and saying, look, I'm a customer here and I respect your workers and I respect the humans that are trying to do the day to day, but you got to find your bravery to step up and push back on regional management, try to get that sort of like upward pressure to get people to do the right thing. You know, post on social media, do that as well. But I like what you're saying, but it also makes me conscious of the fact that by moving my business to somewhere else, I could be playing into job stability for some of the peeps that are working at that store if they're not going to be, you know, because staffing can be finite. So, but I
appreciate that. I appreciate that. The flip side of it, and then it's like, but then you're left with a decision. Like, okay, so I can go and I can buy their donuts that aren't even that good, and I can help the people that work there because they have a job. But then I'm still feeding the monster because really they don't care about their employees. So I'm there trying to help their employees, but they don't care about their employees at all. That kills me too. But you're right. I mean, I guess I could I could make it known how I'm feeling, but I'd also like to support the local places too.
Undoubtedly. I think in the reactionary frame though that you're talking about, like if you were actively prior to this supporting locals, this might not even, well, you're actually, no, the approach might be the exact same. You're going to roll into, you might be buying your donuts at, Clough's Donut Shop down the street, but you still feel compelled as a fellow human to sort of walk into that Tim Hortons and say, you know what, I need to talk to this manager because I need to voice my opinion, even though I'm not a client or a customer of this shop. It's an interesting kind of little twist, the tension, like, should customers actually care about the staff?
You know what's epic? I'm
Tell me.
sorry, what you just said makes me want to just walk into Tim Hortons, walk right up to the cash, and just give the person working the $3. Hey, here's $3. What do you mean? It's for you. See ya. I'm not buying your stuff, but I'm happy to give you $3. How awesome would that be? How fun would that be? I mean, I'm sure it'd be weird for them. They'd be like, why is this guy giving me money? But I would rather give the employee a few dollars for their pocket in the store where they work than to pay for the product in that store.
Mm-hmm.
I think I might do that. If I do it, I'll send you a pic. I might even make a little slip of paper that says, I'm not giving Timmy's my money, but I'm happy to give you a few dollars.
I think it's great to test drive this side of the way I look at it is like to find a way to be socially conscious and to sort of build your conscience so that you're thinking, how can I put as direct a pressure on this problem as possible, is a great question for everybody to ask themselves. Like everyone that's a part of Canadian, Ontario, world society. Like, what is, if I'm going to engage in some sort of like social endeavor to make things better, I think a big part of that is the iterative process of test driving your own approach. And part of it is just I think the practice of engaging in social projects like this or community building projects is that they're not all going to work, but sometimes it's not necessarily the outcome the outcome doesn't have to be the culminating metric or indicator. It might just be the fact that you are now actively engaging, which is officially a level 4 from where you were before. I mean, whoever listeners, whoever's like, just being able to kind of engage in that. I always tell my kids, and they've kind of fallen off from this, but I still do it. One piece of garbage. When we're walking in the school, pick up one piece of garbage. And the thing is that there's always garbage. There's always garbage in the parking lot. There's always something. So on pickup, the three of us might have only picked up 3 pieces, right? But that's 3 less. It's 3 less. It's worthwhile. I think it's worthwhile. But I think test driving your approaches, you walk in, you give the slip, and you say, "Here, this is for you. I appreciate." What might be interesting is the individual might not even know the why.
I can put the why.
You could, yeah.
I could make a little slip of paper that says, "I'm sorry, your employer doesn't care about you."
Yeah.
I know that's a little bit.
Well, no, it might. Can I make a suggestion?
Of course, you can make a suggestion.
I understand that a doctor's note might cost you $25. Here's $5 just in case if you're ever in this position, here's $5 to help you pay for a doctor's note. Or do whatever the hell you want with the $5. But part of it, and this is where you test drive. This is where someone afterwards like, why'd that guy just give me $5?
This is what I would like to. Yeah, they can spend their $5 on whatever they want. I would write, I read that Tim Hortons doesn't treat their employees very well. I'm not buying their product, but I'm happy to give you a few bucks to show my support.
Yep.
Just like that.
Again, like I said, a great test drive.
Even just the paper with a toonie attached to it. Because if you stop and think about it, if I get a tea or something, I'm not paying more than $2.50 for the tea. So my intention is not to go in there and give somebody $100. My intention is to make a point. Tape the money to the piece of paper and just give it to the people. Here, take this. Because I'm happy to support you. I don't want to support your employer. Because Clough told me that, if I boycott Timmy's, you're going to pay for it. So I don't want to purposely hurt you. Do I want to hurt Timmy's? I just don't want to support them. I believe that they could be the face of Canada. They kind of are in a way. Everybody knows Tim Hortons, but it's gone downhill. It's all corporate. Everything is like automated and stuff. It's like it's not what we want it to be.
I love that you said it's not what we want it
It's not
to
what we
be.
want it to be.
But I love that you said that instead of it's not what it used to be, because
No.
stuff like this could have always been just under the surface.
Yeah.
I like instead the phrase "this is not what we want it to be." I think it's far more current and powerful to frame it that way. For anything, any social endeavor, I think it puts it in a modern immediate lens. This is not what we want it to be. Often, that kind of reminiscent nostalgia kind of frame is this isn't what it used to be. In it has already, any of the isms couched in it. So what it used to be for some might be just as horrific as it is now. And we get blind to that, thinking like just because it's good old days measurement, like somehow everyone had a piece of the pie or, a timbit each. Not necessarily true. But if it's not what we want it to be, I think that sometimes hitting the financial conversation is the space. Just listening to a podcast recently about the importance of when you're trying to get someone to understand your opinion, you need to use their language to start until you get them on board. And if the fluency of the conversation is currency, you have to get versed in it, right? So if you're sort of moving your money to the employees instead of to the actual steep tea, I think that's a great start.
Reminds me of Don Cherry and what Don used to mean to me. Like it was hockey night in Canada, and I loved hockey, and I used to watch it with my dad, and we'd watch Don Cherry, the immigrant who came over to this great country to make something up for his family, and the little kid growing up to, I guess, fulfill my dad's dream, watching this guy on TV, and like all that's gone now. That's what it reminds me of. It's like Tim Hortons is not, after this, Tim Hortons I don't hold it in the same regard as I did before. Knowing that it's a corporation, knowing that their job is to make money. There's something to me that like it screams Canada. Not anymore. What Canada is to me now is a place for people to come and to live a good life. And I told you, I think a lot of what's kind of impacting my thinking these days and hopefully my actions is where I work. It's where I work. It's where I spend my days earning my pay, and the people I work with, and the kids I teach. And man, it's like it feels so right to be there right now, And I've been having these conversations with my coworkers about, like, every day at my work, it's like I learn something new about the system or people's perspective on things. It's wonky, and I'm in a vulnerable place, right? Like I'm middle age. Usually psychologically things happen at that time, where you start to re-examine your life, and you start to see is what I've done worth anything? What am I doing to like make things better before I move on? Like all that stuff.
Can I ask you a quick sort of like interjection there?
Yes, and I want you to be honest.
Is it it is what it is. Is there privilege in the vulnerability? And is that different? Like is that like a very specific flavor of vulnerability?
Can you flesh that out for me a little bit more?
Well, I like, if vulnerability, if any part, okay, so if vulnerability exists at any point in time or geographical space or in a way of thinking, if you didn't have privilege, would that analysis that you're saying that happens in middle age be fundamentally different? It just struck me that, the ability, not the ability, the accessibility to be able to work through vulnerability in such a way that your outcome is whole. You come out whole on the other side, let's say, or more whole. Is that couched at all in privilege?
The way you put it, I would have to say yes. Me being able to take the time to consider my vulnerability. I'm talking big V
Yeah,
vulnerability.
yeah, all good
Yeah,
with that.
big V. Certainly, I believe it has an impact. Because like look at me. I'm at home for a full week. Let's go with 3 weeks. I'm home for 3 weeks and I'm getting paid. I don't have to worry about feeding my children or my family. I don't have to worry about paying my bills. I don't have to worry about being employed after these 3 weeks. I'm very privileged. I'm very privileged. And that privilege does allow me to be able to sit back and to consider things that other people may not have time to consider because they don't have time to think the way I do.
Mm-hmm.
They're out trying to find a job, or right now they're worried about what they're going to do to keep their job. Well, so I appreciate you. I appreciate you dropping that in, and I have no problem um, admitting that I'm privileged. And in fact, if you want to amp it up a bit, I worked very hard to earn my privilege. And that's not to say other people haven't. I'm just saying I remember when I was less privileged. I remember growing up in the same house where my dad and I used to watch Don Cherry. And my friends will tell you, I actually lost a friend because of this. And I don't want to stray too much, but I lost a friend because on Facebook I was talking about white privilege. And my friend was beside himself. He was beside himself. He was arguing, how dare you say that because I'm a white male, I've lived a more privileged life than you. And then what I was trying to do was trying to explain to him the systemic privilege that exists in this society for the white male. Like, let's drill deep and let's look big, right? And he wouldn't go there. He would not buy it. He would not look at what I was trying to say. And his retort was, you lived in a house that was, 5 times bigger than mine, and you had this and you had that. And I, I kept saying, well, did you notice that my father was never home? Like, he was always at work. And, you don't know what my parents had to do to pay the bills. You don't know what my parents had to do for us to get that house in the first place. Like, you don't understand all the barriers that were in my father's way because he was an immigrant, right? And because of the type of work he did, it was kind of frowned upon and he was treated differently. Like, you don't know all that. But what I do know about you is that because you're a white male, certain things tend to happen automatically for you because you're a white male. There are barriers that do not exist automatically because of who you are and the color of your skin. And he's like, I'm out. And you know what I said? I'm like,
bye.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was good knowing you. I learned from you when I was a kid, and I'm learning from you now. You do what you need to do, but I'm sticking by this. So I worked very hard, as many people do, but there are still obstacles in my way, even though I'm an educated person. I'm a professional. I have a great job with great benefits. I worked hard for that. And there's not much more I can say about that. But yeah, I totally agree with your position, and I appreciate you raising it that, oh yeah, I'm totally privileged. I have the ability, I have the time. I'm given the space right now to deal with whatever I want to deal with my vulnerability. Other people are chasing, like, I got kids in my class who I know their parents don't read a thing I send home. You know why? Because they have a mom that doesn't live with the dad and a dad that doesn't live with the mom. I have parents worried about, I need to feed my kid lunch tomorrow, so I don't care what that note in the agenda says. My thinking is, I got to get lunch for tomorrow, or I better get to work because I need to go to work to get paid in order to buy my kid the running shoes that he needs because the other ones are a year old and torn apart. Hey man, I get it. That's why I don't push on those. I don't push on those people, because when everything is said and done, everybody's living a life. Yeah, I'm privileged, right? There are some days that the other night, I think I texted you about this. I'm not sure if I did. It was a rough evening in my house the other night. Nobody in the house was seeing eye to eye. My I told you my wife is sick, so she's struggling to function and to go to work, because we only have a certain amount of sick days, and she could literally have used them all up since she's
Hmm.
gotten this ailment. But she's not. She's like, I'm going to work because I can't afford to take it off. Even though we're privileged, she needs to go to work. So she's at home dying. She's gassed because she spent all her energy at work trying to function. I'm trying to drive the kids around to where they need to be, and the kids were not being cooperative. So all of this led to a culminating activity that nobody wanted to be part of. And in the middle of all this, my youngest says to me, I have homework tonight.
Collaborative culminating activity. Yeah.
And at that moment in time, I picked up the homework, I put it in his backpack, I said, it's not happening. And he was bothered because he's like, my teacher told me needs to be done. And I looked at him, I said, your father's telling you it's not happening.
Hmm.
And so think about that for a second. Think about my life and my privilege. And even in that moment, I was like, we're not touching that school stuff because you spent the whole day there. We're dealing with life and family stuff right now. The last thing I want to hear about is school. And guess what, folks? I'm a school teacher. So if that's happening to me in my privileged world, what's happening in the worlds of other people who are less privileged, who have more important things to think about than their kids' homework or the letter I wrote to advise you that wear green tomorrow because we're not going to be at school for St. Patrick's Day? This is my position. It's always been my position since I became an educator. And it's because as a child, homework, nobody ever helped me with my homework. My parents couldn't.
Hmm.
And yet it was still sent home. And yet the expectation was that it would be done. And yet I still had detentions and I missed all kinds of recesses because I didn't do my homework. I'm trying not to be that guy. But because of my privilege, I will acknowledge that there are things that I do. I'm sure there are lots of things I do that upset the parents of the students I teach and that upset my students. I'm sure there's a ton. And my approach has always been, let me know what it is and I'll tell you if it's negotiable. And I'm willing to say that 95% of what I do is negotiable. 95%. There's 5 that is non. And it came up the other day. I was talking to a parent. No, I was talking to a parent on a field trip. And it was a father. Thanks for coming out, dads. I always appreciate it. And love the moms too, but it's usually 95% the moms come. Dads never come. So I'm happy that dads can come sometimes. And he was saying that his daughter was telling about some stuff we were doing with Minecraft. And I was like, I was glowing, eh? I'm like, this is awesome. Your daughter thought that this tool was complete junk until she started to see that it was helping her with her learning. It was helping her show me that she understood and she was having fun. And that's cool. Andrew Campbell talks about, school doesn't have to be fun. That's not what school's for. But I like it when it's fun. So he's telling me this and I'm like, I'm so happy to hear this feedback from you and that your daughter's enjoying this. And then he says to me, it wasn't like that back in the day for us. I'm like, man, I'm telling you, it wasn't like that for me at all. And then I said to him, there's a lot of things that I do that I'm sure they don't like. But I said, these 3 things have to happen in my class all the time. I need compliance with these 3 things. And you see a different Mr. C when I don't get those 3 things. You see like a 3-headed monster type of person, because if I don't have these 3 things, then everything else doesn't happen. We don't get the Minecraft. We don't get the that you can sit on whatever furniture you want in a corner of the room to do your work type of thing. None of that happens if I don't have these three things. So these three things are non-negotiable. I'm the teacher. I'm running the show. I'm responsible for the show. These three things. And he was like, hey dude, he's like, I'm with you. But I had gotten to the mode of, I hope you don't come at me with one of these three things, because I'm going to have to tell you I'm not negotiating on these three things. And because I'm a professional and I have some professional judgment, I could sit down with my principal and I believe I could successfully argue why those three things need to happen in my class and that I'm not changing them. But I know that about myself, and I'm not a rookie. I've been doing this for a while, so I have some capacity, I've built on that foundation. But yeah, even this privilege thing is wild. It's wild. People will look at me and say I'm privileged, and I am now, but I've not always been. I had to get into privilege. And that's what I'm trying to do for the kids in my class. I'm trying to teach them how to move in that direction if that's what they want.
I think that part of what I'm getting out of what you're saying is also, though, there's the possibility that you were always privileged depending on who's observing it.
That could be the case for anybody.
I know, but yeah, dude, and that's what I'm just saying.
Okay.
And, having people push back on your life and setting things that you've gone through as 2 floors up from what they experienced. That's what makes this conversation and, that sort of like teasing out of vulnerability so one-to-one in many ways. And the necessity of getting to know and connecting and staying once you do know. You know what I mean? I'm going to bring it back to Jesus, dude, and thinking about what that reflective moment or practice about hitting middle age or past middle age, and the analysis of that, what that would look like to him. And we don't have the story, we don't have anything more, but if you're observing that there was something, that there was an other to him, like he was different than you, or he seemed potentially there was something precarious about his life. What would that reflective practice of realization that I am vulnerable, how long has he sort of been in that state? Is this, or maybe, and like I said, maybe it isn't. Maybe this is just a dude. He's got an exec job somewhere making decent cash, and he just happens to sort of really like carrying his belongings around to coffee shops or the sub shop, carries his bags around with him. My mom just 2 days ago, she was telling me how she was at the grocery store, and there was it was busy as it is right now. Everyone's trying to load up their shelves, and she helped a dude out that was having a little bit of trouble with the bags or whatever he was trying to carry up to the cash. And because some of the lineups were like, it was really, what's the word? It was manic, as in they were getting really long and then really short, really long and then really short. So she managed to get in on one of the cycles where they were short and then they like stacked up again. Dude was standing there, didn't have a cart, was holding his bags. So my mom let him in. She basically said, come here, get in front. And she did the protective element, like, staring down people. You're not saying anything. Look at this dude. This dude needs to get in line. So he got in front, paid for his groceries, and then waited and wanted to pay for my mom's groceries. And my mom said, I wasn't going to take any money from the guy. Like, I looked at him. He was old. He looked like he was ailing. And I said, I said, part of a, I challenged her thing. I said, consider for a moment that he could have been thinking the same thing about you. That maybe he then measured you. Like, his kindness was important. And I just said, I hope you acknowledge the kindness in a way that recognized, not like you spent time looking at the kindness as something intentional from him to help you, as opposed to making the assumption that there was something precarious about his life, because he could have done the same thing about you. And I said, the truth of it is, like, my mom is leading a precarious life right now. She's still in mourning the loss of my father, she still talks about being isolated and how lonely she is. Whether or not she was recognizing it in that moment, I don't know. But this is something that there is a real precariousness. If she goes into that reflective practice and being vulnerable right now, she's got stuff. I said, maybe he was reading that in you. And it just kind of stopped her for a second. She's like, well, I'm not going to take money from some stranger. I'm like, okay, fine. I'm not. I'm just appreciate the connection that's happening here. That in the same way you were reaching out to help some random dude, maybe his purpose was to help you too. And back to Jesus, dude, who knows if there was a transformational moment in these times where somebody comes up to you and, we can make it about when we set our privilege, level high and look at the person that we're about to help as less than, even a little bit, what we might not recognize is that we actually need to have that connection because it helps counterpoint our belief system. We can gain from making these connections with people. So I feel like we got into some philosophy today. I don't know. I feel like we're channeling some Stephen Hurley stuff here.
You could be more Hurley, not me. I'm not. When I think of Hurley, I think, total philosopher. That's not me at all. I got none of that in me. And I'm not saying that as a bad thing. I'm just saying, like, that's not, he's got a gift. I don't have the same gift. I want to be clear about, like, this Tim Hortons thing. I don't see it as, I don't see it as me looking down on people.
Mm-hmm.
I see it as an awareness that me not purchasing their product, many people not purchasing their product could in fact harm the people they employ. I get that. Totally get that. Where I land is that I don't want to hurt those people. I don't want those people to be harmed. I want them to still have their employment. If that's the only job that they can get, or the only job that they want to have, or that they like what they're doing, like, I don't want to interfere with that. I'm not telling them they need to go work somewhere else. I could very well see people saying, quit your job at Timmy's and go get a job somewhere else. Like, people will say that. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is if I really want to, like, that's a big middle finger moment when you walk into a place and you're like, I don't value the people that employ you, but I value you. So take the $2.50 that's going to cost for my tea. I'm not going to drink my tea, but I'm going to show you I support you. I mean, I guess people could see that and say, I'm sure somebody could attach something negative to that. I'm just choosing that's not the approach. That's not the intention. And this guy, you know what I thought about in the car driving home? This guy at the sub shop, I don't know his story. And I'm sure there's been times where I've come off a certain way to people who don't know me that probably thought this guy's nuts or this guy's different just because of the way I was acting. Like with this whole vulnerability thing, the way I had been presenting myself at work with certain people, they might be wondering, like, what is wrong with him? They may very well be thinking that. And my perspective is there's nothing wrong with me. I'm just trying something new, and I'm trying to, like, look inside of me and see, like, who I am, my potential, what I could be. So as I was driving away, I was not, again, like when I say that the man may have been homeless, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that in a way to take away from his story or who he is. I'm saying it in that I don't know his circumstances. And I don't know his circumstances. Maybe he's just a dude that lives in my neighborhood. He lives in a house just like mine, you know, has a great job, and just felt like chatting with somebody at the restaurant. I don't know. But I tell you something, in my short lifetime, people don't usually walk up to me and just start talking about Jesus without a context. Like at school, I may run up to somebody and say, "Hey, it's this liturgy's happening. What are the readings I need to consider or something?" Like, you get what I'm saying? There's
Oh yeah.
context there. It makes sense there. But for me to be buying a sub and there's no like immediate obvious context for the discussion, it just kind of struck me as weird. Even if it was like a Catholic or Christian sub shop, Jesus subs or something, and everybody in there's talking Bible verses and stuff, then it makes total sense. But that's not the kind of store I was at yesterday.
No, I gotcha. I just, like I said, I just love that the event happened. The event happened, and that the sort of like this brief moment of connectivity and the conflict, like the real, like what would a connection at this moment mean? Like, these are great. It's a great conversation to have right now. What are the implications of staying open versus closed? Like, all these things are, damn, like they're great earthling problems. They're just great earthling problems. Staying connected when everything is telling you that I just need to stay closed and kind of get on with my stuff. So it's a great example. I think it's a very cool, a very cool little bit of reflective provocation to move into the next 3 weeks too, because I think moments like this, micro moments, are going to play out again and again over the next 3 weeks. We are going to be outside of our bubble. We are officially not going to be in the regimented checklisty between the bells lives that engage us, connect us, energize us, but also protect us. Also keep us from necessarily seeing the stuff that goes on during the day when we're not at school. Right? We're going to get to notice people in neighborhoods that it's that, you ever have that kind of strange moment where, let's say you have a sick day, but you have to go out to get the garbage bins, and you walk out there at like, I don't know, 12:22 in the afternoon, and you look down the street and you see one of your neighbors sitting out on their front porch, like gardening. And you say to yourself, geez, I never really thought of anything going on my street when I wasn't there. Like, it's such an egocentric kind of like way to look at the world. So I think there's going to be a whole lot of these sort of interesting moments where we're going to bring our story with us into these spaces, like it did into the sub shop. And we're going to have to fight against some of our kind of thinking to realize that we're kind of in a space that we really don't have any criteria to measure it. Like, you experiencing having the Jesus moment in the sub shop, maybe that goes on all the time. And you were the interloper in this kind of like moment. Maybe you were the person that was sort of like it's new, agreed, just because you're a new participant in this conversation. What if there were 7 other people in that sub shop that were saying, yeah, that's Mike.
Yeah.
We know
Yeah.
Mike and his Jesus story. Great guy, Mike. Great guy. Hey, did you know that he owns a small business in Waterloo? Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's this again, when we bring our own personal story into these spaces and we don't let go of it, we're going to sort of like make people into the characters in our lives, as opposed to realizing we're now somebody in somebody else's story. So
Yeah, like it could have been Mike, who's always in there, and he's looking at me like this. I'm the stranger.
Yeah, Mike's part
right?
owner of the sub shop.
I know. What? Who knows?
I'm playing with it now, but this is the stuff that we don't, that you didn't have access to. You didn't get access to.
Well, now it's in my mind, right? It's there. And I don't know what I'm going to do with it, but I tell you, it's there.
That connection, man.
Dude, who knew that we were going to get so philosophical? I think it's because we're going to be locked in our house for the next 3 weeks.
Yeah, it could be. I'm not, again, I'm just going to stay loose, do my mental stretches, kind of follow the needs of my family. No one's feeling ill right now, so I'm celebrating that. I was saying to Karen last night, some of my colleagues were talking about how precarious the next 3 weeks will be for them, and they asked me what my opinion is, and I said I don't get one. I said I don't get one. I said I'll if you want to. I said I'm happy to. If we want to talk away from here. I said, but I definitely don't want to be the guy soaked in my privilege of being paid, secure in the fact that my kids are going to be cared for because I'm off with them. And my worst case scenario is just that I got to go stand in line and pick up some frozen foods for dinner. Happy to talk to you on the side, but I really don't think I have any right commenting on that. And they just kind of looked at me because there was a whole lot of conversation. We had some support staff that were subs for the day, and there wasn't work booked after the break. So very, very different situation than myself. And I wasn't trying to disrespect the conversation or demean it. I just wanted to make sure that I said up front, I don't know if I should have a say in this because of my situation. I don't know.
No, I hear you, and I'm feeling for the people that aren't going to be paid. Like
Yeah.
I'm still very much when something like this happens, and it's happening all over the world. Like it's just not happening here. It's happening all over the world, and yet people are just like, no, you're going to pay your bills. And what has to happen to change that? Like, does there have to be like this huge revolt? Like, this is what I'm thinking. If things could get really bad, then people could do bad things. We're not there yet. So why don't we just start be a little bit proactive and not worry so much about the money? Like in Italy, I read that because they had shut everything down, they had also there's something in place for, well, if nobody's working, then you can't pay mortgages.
Yeah.
People don't like all this stuff is being looked after because the country's recognizing we need to do something now. And so in order to do it and to do it right,
I think it was 1 or 2 months they put mortgage payments on hold.
something like
You don't have
that.
to pay. Yeah.
And it's like that's leadership, man. And that's thinking of everybody, right? That's considering everybody, considering worst case scenarios. We need that at times like this. And why? And when we don't do it, then I just think that something's gone wrong. Something we've been programmed wrong. We're too busy thinking about the things that aren't supposed to be important, but that we've given so much importance to.
Mm-hmm.
And hey, I'm saying that and I'm getting paid, right? So I'm sitting in a position where I can say whatever I want because I'm still going to pay my bills because I got the money to pay them. But there are some people that are not in the same position, right? And there are some people like who don't believe any of this should be happening, and that's fine. And there's people who believe everything should be shut down, and that's fine too. I just hope that people who are in positions of power use their common sense, if you want to call it that, and consider. And if they don't consider it, maybe people like us should be telling them to consider it. Like, hey, have you thought of this? What about these people? Like I got a couple of emails from some of the utilities I have. Not one of them said anything about deferring payments. Their position was, hey, if a technician needs to come to your house and fix something, here are the things we have in place to protect you and to protect them. And as I'm reading the email, I'm like, okay, when are they going to tell me? When are they going to say, oh, by the way, if you need to defer your payment, call this number and talk to us about your situation? I didn't see it. And I'm like, well, that's the first thing that should be at the top of your email. The first thing should be, yeah, the first thing should be, hey, we know you might not have the money to pay. Call this number, tell us what your situation is, and let's talk about it. Let's figure out a plan. Then tell me about if the tech needs to come over. that they're not going to shake my hand and they're going to stay 2 meters away from me or whatever. Or they're going to ask me, "Are you sick?" Because if I'm sick, they're not coming in. Like, seriously, making millions of dollars. These people, that's where they start. It's stuff like that.
Everybody's got a blind spot, dude. Everybody's got a blind spot.
And there's the title for this episode.
Blind spot?
Everybody has one.
Yep.
Everybody has a blind spot. I love it when we do that.
Nail the blog title?
Nail the blog title. I haven't. Yeah, I'm going to move on. Okay. Hey, it was great talking to you today.
Yeah, man.
Thanks for the chat.
I just want to say, I love that. I think we're both rocking. So there's, was it St. John's Thunder?
St. John's Thunder, and you're the Teen Titans?
Yeah, the Tommy Douglas Titans.
Nice.
That is cool. We both dropped into that. There was no wardrobe conversation prior to this episode.
I still have my my association swag here.
I see it.
And hopefully I don't need to use it anymore.
Yeah. We'll see.
Okay, buddy.
Take care, you and yours.
Same to you.
And I look forward to... Oh, hey, do you want to see...
the sketch.
So here's what I did. I think it might still be drying, so we'll see. I'll see if I can get it up.
It looks like a cell. Is it a cell?
It may be.
Oh.
I was thinking about connection. I was thinking about... I don't know. I was thinking how things kind of move away from center. And I thought I need a through line here. I don't know.
It's cool, though.
It's just...
It's better than my sketch.
Let's see yours.
Right? Something's better than nothing most of the time.
I like how yours leaves everything up to interpretation of the listener viewer, though. That's cool.
Yeah, now if only I could get that in a museum and get paid like hundreds of thousands of dollars for it, that'd be great.
Did you not hear about? There was like the art installation, I don't know, this year, a few years ago. And I think it was real. The story is interesting. If it was a joke, it's interesting too. Someone just like tacked a banana to the wall. Now, okay, so I'm thinking
you have to have privilege to be able to do that.
It's true.
You have to be known in the art community. I can't just walk in and put like, a shoe on the wall and say it's art. I don't have that cred. So whoever does the banana thing,
but there's a next level to it. There's a next level to it though, because I don't know. As I think through it now, this might have been part of the art, or it could have been completely happenstance. But I like the story either way. Is that at least one point in the viewings, some dude walked up and pulled the banana off the wall and started to eat it. Now, if that was the artist, I love it. Like they just sort of, or they have somebody walk in and kind of destroy their art in the middle of it. If it's a commentary on what we raise to art, which is actually a necessity for someone. Like if someone just random walked up and they were hungry and they thought, I'm going to eat that friggin' banana. Like, I like it. So, yeah. You hang your piece of paper on the wall and be happy when someone walks up and needs it as a Post-it note.
That's cool.
Could be.
Okay, dude.
Chat you later.
See ya.
Have a great weekend.